Okay.
Scott. Well, I've been trying.
What are you trying to do here?
Guess what?
And we are live, but so we know what course we're on, we will also listen to it. But I think we're going to have an amendment on this bill, because we don't Senate education, we're gonna end up or with the House bill. And if Senate Ed decides they want to do this, then they can move to substitute what they've already done.
I am nine.
No, but well, they have created the work we just saw. They gathered, they bottlenecked over whether or not at the end it was mandatory to merge. And we just went through, it's not mandatory to merge, but if you don't, you have to live within the foundation formula and you have to meet the education standards. If you can do that, it's more power to you, I guess.
So are you going over?
I'm gonna do it.
He's gonna go over it.
But yeah,
You want me to share my screen for you, Senator Beck?
yeah, could you?
Yeah, will you just send me what you want shared?
I will.
I'm happy to do it.
Thank you. Yeah, it wasn't you at all.
I gotta go. Okay.
Ruth has chocolate.
I'm chocolate now, so everything's gonna be.
Charlotte.
Sorry.
How about ice cream? Like,
No ice cream, no pizza, and you have to bring your own chocolate.
BYOs.
I have one beef stick, I'm good until midnight. Like.
No, I look what of the bags.
Good ones.
He doesn't let us order pizza. So it's gonna be, we're gonna go.
If we're hungry, we'll stop messing around. Okay.
What are we doing?
We're getting it up on the
Julie's
screen. There are finance things in here. If this gets. And Senate Ed is going to hear it tomorrow morning at 8. And then we will see where they go with it. But we should at least know what it is and see what the finance parts are. But this is, again, they're completely different than what's Senate Ed has put together. Different.
Shop in my ink.
You're not?
No.
I didn't say anything. Just sitting here eating chocolate.
Hey, there's time.
I'll send it again. I don't know what it was.
Oh, there we go.
Got it?
Yeah.
Kind of a big file.
Yeah.
The map, I'm not sure why it's enough.
All right, so you want me to share this PDF on the screen?
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Blow that up a little bit so we can all see where our
Yeah.
accounts are.
Cause that's the first thing we're gonna.
That's the first thing that I get. Okay,
What is this?
so 30,000 feet. What would happen under this proposal? Is that every existing school district would be turned into an attendance zone.
You know what?
I call what I call an attendance zone. So the zone that includes basically the same lines that every school district, just an attendance zone instead of a school district. Okay, and each attendance zone would have an advisory board. I call it a local education advisory board. that would be responsible for communicating with the school district as to what the needs of those schools and those children are. They would be responsible for determining whether they tuition or not and for what grades they tuition.
Are they elected?
They would be elected. Yep. And they would also have the power to disagree with any school district that tried to close a grade in any of the public schools within their attendance zone. And I included in language where if the school district, in each of these bigger blobs is a school district, if the school district decided to close a grade at a public school in their district, that would require a 3/4 vote of the school board. And that local advisory board could disagree. And if they did, then it would go to AOE for decisions. So each of the attendance zones are assigned to one of these districts up here. Chittenden County's Barber Pole, I'll explain what that is, what that means in a second, something different.
Barber pole, I've never heard that.
Striped.
Straight, diagonal stripes, okay.
Wow.
And so each school district up there represented by one of those 11 solid colors would be a school district. Each school district would be composed of a number of different attendance zones based on the existing school districts, okay? Why have these been chosen? For scale, but predominantly what this map allows for is that every child in Vermont would now be part of a school district that operates at least one CTE center. And so every kid would have clear access to a CTE center. And none of this, a kid's in a school district, the school district doesn't have a CTE center, it can be difficult to get the kid to a CTE center. Okay, and that's kind of where, that's kind of the way the lines are drawn along those lines.
Existing tech centers.
The existing tech centers that we have right now. That's right. Yes. Okay, if you could scroll up to Chittenden County.
You just said they would be in an existing, would they be in a school district? Do you
Yes.
mean school, the attendance zones would qualify as a district? not a
No,
union?
the colors up here are each a school district.
Do you have choice within that school district?
I would, yes, kids would all have intra-district choice within that school district, any public school. If they're in an attendance zone that currently tuitions, then those kids would be able to pick amongst independent schools or even public schools outside of the school district. Okay.
And they'd be busing.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean,
So Scott, that gets around, take Georgia, for example.
okay, Georgia,
It's in that top 10 district.
I'll point to it.
A lot of the,
Is this-
Yeah, Georgia, okay, yeah.
some of the students there come down to Milton, come down to Essex, South Burlington.
Mhm.
Under your proposal, those students would still be able to,
That's
Go to
right,
those.
yeah. So Georgia would be an attendance zone because Georgia is an existing school district. And the kids from Georgia, they operate a public school up through grade 8. When they hit 9 through 12, they don't operate a high school. So at that point, those kids could go to, I don't know, the closest, they could go to a lot of different places, but the closest is St. Albans and maybe Fairfax or Milton. They could still go to those schools just like they do now.
They could still go to a school outside of the supervisory. area.
Outside of the school district, outside of the Northwest Area District.
Okay.
That's right. Just like they do now,
Mhm.
okay? Now what's going on in Chittenden, why I diagonal stripes,
I like the part.
is Chittenden County is just a little, they have 8 high schools, 22,000 kids approximately, but they only have 2 CTE centers. And so I didn't, if you make it more than 2 districts, somebody's not gonna have a CTE center, right? So what I put in the language here was that what would happen in the Chittenden County Grand Isle area is that they would, upon passage of this act, they would form a task force of people from that area to recommend two things. One, that they could divide themselves in up to 4 different school districts. And two, if they organize themselves in such a way that some of their school districts do not have a CTE center, they have a plan in place so that every kid in that entire area has equal access to CTE and not, right now we have districts without CTE and sometimes they get closed out, and so that every kid has equal access to CTE, but they could organize themselves into as many as four school districts. So that means we would end up with anywhere between, if Chittenden County said, we're just gonna be one big school district, which is probably not very likely, but maybe, we would have 12 school districts, 12 cities.
These are attendance zones.
The colors are school districts,
The colors are
or school
school
districts.
districts.
There are
So
attendance zones.
where are the attendance zones?
Well, you can, you have to know your area. You
I
could-
thought these were attendance zones you were showing.
No. The colors are school districts. Within the school districts, there are attendance zones.
Okay, so you are dividing the state into what?
12 to
School
15
districts.
school districts. That's right.
Mandated, mandatory.
Yep, this would be the map. This would be what we do. So for example, in your area, Senator Cummings, you would have, I think it's called is it Washington?
Central area.
Central Area District in, your current U32 district, that would be an attendance zone. And, Barry would be, if that Barry School District would be an attendance zone, and Montpelier School District would be an attendance zone. But
So
they
how
would all
is
be
that
within a
different?
school. Well, an attendance zone is responsible for advising the school
Oh, okay,
district,
but you're making our current school boards
our current school districts,
advisory,
yeah, making them advisory
and
and
there's one elected school.
school board above, yes.
Okay,
And then-
I thought the map was showing us attendance zones.
What's happening in the lower area of the Caledonia district? I see there's different
Oh,
colors there.
that's an interstate school district,
Okay,
yeah,
the lower one,
I
right,
thought,
right there.
interstate,
Okay.
that's Rivendell.
Okay, let's,
I thought that we decided that we were working on the finance section
We
of the bill. This is
said it,
way out of
we are,
March.
it is, and we are
Yeah.
not taking any further testimony.
Right, it's an issue
We're
of
gonna go
familiar,
through
it's
this,
familiar.
so everyone
Yep.
gets a chance to be heard. It's being presented to education tomorrow. They will have their say as to this. I assume that's if we get the bill out and on the floor tomorrow,
Which bill are you referring to?
the educate 955.
I don't think it's gonna be on the floor tomorrow. Right.
Well, we're supposed to have it out of here tomorrow.
Right, but it won't be on the floor tomorrow.
No,
Okay,
well, unless they
okay.
move things.
So that's the high, the state
Okay.
is in anywhere from 12 to 15 school districts, depending on what Chittenden
Alright.
County does. Every kid has a clear path to CTE. And within each of those school districts, there are 119 attendance zones for the 119 school districts. And they have some things that they do. Yeah.
thank you, thanks, Scott. Clear path to CTE, I'm just questioning that statement, because
Okay.
when we were on the task force last summer, we looked at doing CTE districts, and we found that when we dug into the data, that actually they're not equitably geographically placed around the state, and they're woefully inadequate to meeting the needs of every kid who wants CTE, so
Because they're all different.
I don't understand, and they have different programming as well,
Barry is
so
sending kids
I
up
mean,
to Caledonia.
I guess I just don't understand that.
Well, I mean, I think that's the, this is not. This doesn't, I mean, I think we do need to build more CTEs, but I don't think. I think CVU should probably have a CTE. And I don't. I mean, if your point is that if somebody lives in Berry City, that it's easier for them to access CTE than it is from, say, a kid in Waterbury, your point's well taken.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
I
talking-
think we found out the placement of CTEs were political decisions way back when, and it was like whoever had the political power in this building got the CTE. It wasn't based on like geographic equity.
I don't
Okay,
recall that
I think
conversation.
I'm gonna move this along because I'm not getting into political decisions in the 1930s.
All I mean by clear path is that there's not a district line between a kid and CT.
Okay, so
That's all, that's what,
All right.
okay,
I think we need to go forward and find
Okay.
out how we're gonna save money.
okay, so, on the spending side, on the finance side, you know, ours, okay? What I propose is that we, do not move forward with the Act 73 foundation. And instead, what we do is we adopt S-220, 112%,
What says 220?
where we did, 112% in FY20 excess spending threshold,
Okay,
okay? And,
okay, well,
you know,
back to that.
Where these districts would, stand up, start operating on July 1 of 29, so for FY30, okay? So 112, FY28 or FY28, FY29, and then when we hit FY30, tip down 111 and go down 1% a year until we hit 105, and that'd be the, okay? Why did I pick 105? Because 105 is the average district spend in the state of Vermont this year. And the only other thing I really did on the finance side was to put in the language here, and I haven't had a chance to read it yet, is that there would be a floor. And that base that the excess spending threshold is tied to,
Across the hall soon.
you could not spend less than 90% of that number. And we do have I've got about a dozen school districts that are spending less than that. And so for those dozen school districts, they would get,
Your
Hold up
tax
to
rate would
upsell.
go up.
but basically everybody would be sitting between 90 and 105. If a district wanted to go above 105, they certainly could do that, but they would hit the excess spending
What
threshold
about-
of those dollars.
The city of Barry or Springfield or up in your area in the kingdom.
There are some districts that would be pulled up. I can,
Well, their spending would be pulled up, but so would their tax rate, right?
not necessarily, because if you're bringing these high spenders down,
Okay, so South
That's-
Burlington's gonna be brought down.
they're not actually high spenders. But
What do you do about capital debt? Do you deal with that?
they would, the new district would assume the capital debt for the district. That would probably be a factor in what Chittenden County decides to,
Okay, and that would be mandatory.
that they come together into one school district.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I want to make a comment and then a question. One,
See how it's
you,
gonna save money.
you really illustrated to me that Chittenden County needs another CTE center, so I'm
They
just gonna
do.
say that, but I'll put that.
I think that could be part of their plan.
Yeah. But secondly, can you elaborate on your timeline for this governance? And are you building off of work that has been done in the House for standing up these new districts? Because that requires elections, that requires figuring out who's got what proportionment. How are those new master school districts going to be
Well,
online and
What
functioning?
they know is they know the end date, which is they have to be up and running on July 1 of 2029. Okay, anyway, I haven't had a chance to go through the fine tooth, but I think we would set those guidelines in 2027. This is when you're gonna elect your people. If we wanted to do a word system, that's where we would do that. I don't know if we want to. But we would make those decisions in 2027.
Okay. I'm watching the clock. I'm watching.
I'm done, that's all it is.
Okay,
That's it.
I think this
That's it.
needs to go to Senate Finance
I'll go there tomorrow.
or to Education.
Yeah.
This may be a decent idea, but it's 2 years too late. 73 is the law. So we, at this point in the session, to jettison everything we've done for 2 years and then put in something that has yet to be vetted is difficult. I mean, this this is a lot of, I'm still not sure how anyone's saving money. I mean, you say, well, we're gonna forbid you to spend more.
No,
No, you can.
Well, no, you'll pay double.
but you'll pay penalty.
That's pretty close.
Yeah.
And we're going to make you spend more,
Yeah, there's a little bit of spending below 90%.
which in some of your poorer communities would raise taxes. I happen to have some of them, along with whatever the general rate is. Okay,
I do like the departure from the foundation formula restricting local say. I think what I heard and what you just suggested is using the excess spending threshold in another way, continued way to give the districts continued choice, but with penalty. So that is something that resonates more with what I want to see in an education system in Vermont. So I'll say that much.
Looking for this.
we are 2 years down the road, 3.
But and I just want to make this point is that, this is not a contingency, check back plan. This is like, we're gonna do something.
Be enacting districts.
Yeah, we're not gonna do a study, we're gonna do something.
Senator Hardy, and I've got a question for Beth.
It seems to me that your proposal for the districts was something that was very similar to what you proposed in the task force and was not supported by the task force. And that task force did a lot of work in, Senator Deal can talk to this more than me, but did a lot of work last fall about districts and consolidation and forced consolidation and what there was an appetite for. I remember reading about your proposal to do school districts around CTE centers and 12 school districts. I think that I have concerns with trying to force something that has been studied and been rejected. And then in terms of the proposal about sticking with our current formula and just ratcheting down the excess spending threshold, I guess I would ask, why did you not propose that in January of 2025 before we went down this huge path? And, you know, the governor came out with his proposal. You could have come out with your proposal then, and it actually might have made a difference. But
Yeah,
as the chair said, we are way down this path right now. And, you know, this proposal may have some worth to it, but it's really hard to talk at this 11th hour or 24th hour, 23rd hour, about this. And it would have been really great
if you remember,
last
okay,
year.
we had a finance plan that came out of Senate Ed, that was supported by Senate Ed. It was supported by this committee, and it was supported by Senate Appropriations, and people were fine with it. And then we had a secret squirrel thing going on around here. And something got jammed in there that wasn't vetted, that nobody discussed in this committee. So I think that comment rings a little hollow with me.
Okay, we are going,
Was actually very vetted.
bottom line
Just
is
based on-
that neither the House nor the Senate could get the votes for a mandatory system. And it's been tried, either in committee or on the floor. And so to go to a mandatory system now, I think the fallback has been, we're going to give you a chance to fix it on your own. But in the end, pick a date. The foundation formula is going in, and you are going to live on the budget. And the budget is set on national standards, and we're still getting studies in on what that will be. And then we'll have to figure out how we will pay for it. But that's where we are. The mandatory is the money. We're agnostic about how you set up your school district or superintendency or whatever, as long as you can live within that budget. You can't export your costs to Chittenden County or a couple ski towns. You will live within it, and you will meet enhanced educational standards. You are not going to be able to graduate kids who can't take their blue and gold scholarships because their schools didn't offer enough classes for them to be accepted into the University of Vermont. Any kid that wants to take those classes is going to have the opportunity to take them. And if you get outside of the big cities, they don't. And so this is where we are. We can decide at this point, either, and I will wait to hear from Ed in the morning, but either we are going to go to conference with the House proposal, which means there's nothing different in the Senate proposal, so you can't bring anything in different in conference. If it's not in either bill, it can't be altered. You're all the same. And whatever we do with finance, or we're going to put the best work, and my question for Beth is, as written, is there a mandatory point at which, was it mergers that the House couldn't agree on, or the Senate, Ed?
Beth St. James, Office of Legislative Counsel. I'm not sure I understand the question.
I was told that the work of the Education Committee, this was their work. They deadlocked at the end of whether something should be mandatory or not. Do you know, or can you tell us what that was or what's in the bill?
There's nothing in the bill is either passed by the House or draft 6.2 of Senate Education that makes a school district merger mandatory. There was discussion in Senate Education about that process, but I feel uncomfortable representing the policy positions of the senators on that
That
committee.
was what deadlocked, right? Was the mandatory section?
There were some creative phrases used
Oh,
in positions, and so
Okay.
I feel uncomfortable asserting what those phrases stood for, but I think generally speaking, yes.
okay, that was, all right. So if we do this and put it on, we are putting on what is pretty much the agreed position of the Education Committee. We can, as we go forward, discuss whether or not we want a mandatory trigger or we're comfortable with the threat of the fiscal reality of the foundation formula being enough to strongly encourage a decision. Or if you are one of those schools that can live on what is nationally an adequate amount of money to produce an excellent, the old foundation formula said, minimal, an excellent education, then more power to you. We should have you teaching classes on how to do that. And it gives you some flexibility. We've got several reports coming back. Nothing is set in stone until that final trigger is pulled.
So, Senator Beck, I see a lot of merit in your approach, but I'm a realist at heart, and so I don't see either the Education Committee or this one fully embracing and adopting this. But what I do see is I'm glad you're presenting to Senate Ed, because they've probably been knee deep in the district conversation more than us, so I'd love to hear their thoughts for how you present it tomorrow morning. But the second piece of this, does this come forward with more support than just you? Is this also, are you putting forward support from your caucus and the administration regarding the departure from the foundation formula towards leveraging existing structures like the excess spending threshold? Because that has a great deal of merit to me that I'd love to be germane in any committee or conference where we start to step away from my biggest issue with the trajectory of Act 73, which is where Montpelier dictates how much people get for their schools. and how much the taxes they're gonna pay, which is some of the merits of our current system. So is that part of where you sense more support than just yourself?
I should not,
Yeah.
I should not speak for the administration, sure, them come and speak for themselves, but I would very much welcome coming in and speaking for this.
So the last thing I'll say, if there's a way for us to make germane for continued conversations on this, the notion of a departure from the foundation formula towards the leveraging of the excess spending threshold to reduce variance while still honoring differences in our community's priorities and willingness to spend on education. That is the trajectory Mission at 73 have gone in, and I support.
Okay, you need to get your law degree and become a member of the.
I know Brigham, but I don't think Brigham was necessary.
But Brigham
Alternatives.
is the
Interpretations.
law of the land, despite anything in Washington. This is still the United States, and they are the final arbiter of the Constitution until another Supreme Court changes it.
I'm arguing for our current system, which is the excess spending threshold in an adapted approach, which nobody has challenged the Brigham compliance of our existing
This
system.
is perfectly compliant.
It would,
That's my point. So I like that piece of this. So I think it honors the balance between freedom and unity, not to sound cheap.
so your town would
Right.
be happy paying
I want to give them
double
the choice.
taxes?
There are differences in priorities and how the communities value public education. I don't want Montpelier dictating
I think
what
you'll,
people can spend
I
on their
think-
schools.
you'll find that a lot of those priorities are dictated by the cost. And that they would want their kids to have more education, better education, but they can't pay for it. And that's what we've been trying to solve.
So a way to make this germane for continued conversation in the community conference is what I'd be supportive of the second half of yours. The first half, I really want Senate Ed to have thoughts on.
Okay. But that is not in our domain. So we are going to send this bill out with the House, which means nothing about this will get discussed in committee of conference. Because it's not in either bill. All that will be at odds, will be no education policy. There will be the financing mechanisms, and that will dribble over. I know rules are pain, but they exist.
Well, I think, Senator, if you look at her hand up first.
Thank you. I agree with you. I have a lot of misgivings about the foundation formula. That's why I didn't vote for 454 or 73. That said, excess spending it is not grounded in any kind of evidence or research as a good way to fund education. If we're going to stick with the ed fund, let's fix the ed fund. There are issues with the ed fund, but to use excess spending caps, it seems fairly arbitrary because each district has different spending requirements and needs and construction costs and special education, who knows what. And just to say we're just capping you, seems cruel.
It's budgetary
Right.
guidance based on circumstances that evolve year to year, but still giving them the ability to exceed that. So
It feels
Soft
it
cap.
feels to me arbitrary and not based in science.
Can we exclude capital debt from the
I-
threshold, right?
I exclude capital debt to this bill.
No.
I mean, I asked that question. You do exclude it?
Yes, yeah, capital debt is excluded. Just, yeah,
Just like 220 and.
yes, yeah.
That's all.
I would say that the current funding formula is on the table because it is what we have right now. And it is what the default is unless all the contingencies for the foundation formula are in place. And there's another bill that has this whole construct of the lowering the excess spending threshold. In fact, you're on that conference committee, you three are. And so that remains an option on the table without sort of blowing up the education bill right now, because the current funding formula is what's in the law until all the contingencies are met. So
But I didn't vote for it either, partly because of that. So just because it's in the law in Act 73 doesn't mean that I support the continuation of it.
and I do, I mean, agree with the chair that, you know, and Senator Kulik that this whole concept of, well, my town might want to spend more and can spend more, so we're gonna double tax ourselves to go over the spending threshold, but other towns are not able to do that because they're not able to pay. Or to say that it's okay that one town will spend more and another town will spend less just because of their ability to pay or their views on how they support their school budget or not. That means that we're just saying we're okay with the inequities in the system and having, you know, the voters in South Burlington or wherever be able to vote more and the voters in.
I think our
Like
community
values or
know
not,
better than
yeah.
the 180 legislators in this building. What
But there are constitutional requirements about an appropriate and equal education.
We
And-
are,
I think we balance.
but I can tell you that there are kids who their schools cannot supply them with the math or science classes that they want because they can't afford to pay for them. Kids going to school in Barry, not to mention up in the kingdom, they get a lot better education in Chittenden County. That is the inequity. And that's the inequity that brought the Brigham decision to the Supreme Court, that the wealth of the community determines makes kids have an unequal opportunity for education. They defined it as money.
We're not recovering ground we've already covered, but that's
Right,
why I support
but
the district.
We can't
consolidation.
undo the Brigham decision.
Right.
We can't allow South Burlington to spend
Everybody
way
thinks that.
more than Barry without Barry having to pick up part of that cost.
So this conversation, this proposal, finance proposal is not in the context of the town district. This is 11 school districts plus whatever comes out of Chittenden County. I think with these bigger districts, you're gonna find that they're probably gonna all land in a pretty close to each other. I mean, you're not gonna have, it's not gonna be Barry and Burlington. It's gonna be the central area district and whatever district that
There are
Burlington.
large economic differences,
There are.
and the economic differences between the Northeast Kingdom and Chittenden County are huge.
The differences now are too varied because of the size differences. We got micro
Yeah.
districts and large
Okay.
districts.
Yeah.
So consolidating to equally comparably sized districts of both voters, kids, and grand list is what I do think is what we need to do as a state. And I do see your plan is somewhat getting to
Okay,
that.
the
Yeah.
first thing I need is a bill to repeal Act 73, and then we can start over. But at this point, Act 73 is the law of the land. We've been told either we do it or everything else we've done this year is going to get vetoed. I'm trying to find a bill that can move us forward. Anybody can present anything on the floor they want and take their chances. But I'm gonna deal with what the reality that this legislature has dealt. And that took a long time. And trust me, some of us were here through June, 5 to 6 days a week, hammering that one out. And I trust I'm gonna be doing that again this year.
Is this on the website?
No,
That's them.
if you got anything that's up there in writing,
We
how
have
to
that
look at,
amendment.
we've seen
I have
that.
it. Yes, and I'm willing to, sure, I can send the map to Charlotte.
No, it's not the map. I think we need to see the words
Yeah,
and the words around
I
and the
agree.
numbers.
I'd like to at least read
Okay.
it once before.
Well, then,
And you send it out tonight to us.
Yes.
all right.
So we gotta vote this out tomorrow. So you're gonna present this to Senate and tomorrow
Yes.
we'll have that inform this discussion. And we're gonna move a bill out of here tomorrow afternoon.
I don't know about that. This has been a little, bombshell that's been dropped in the middle of the
I
table.
didn't think we were getting built today.
I didn't know we were getting the bill today either. I am trying to move the bill forward. So I think we'll go back to our agenda topics and take a look at where we are. And where we left off in our committee of jurisdiction, which I canceled 727 because I think they're still trying to do some numbers on that. Okay,
Seven. Oh, yeah.
wait,
That center.
Yeah, I understand.
section 80. Who gave that to me? Scott, did you?
I think
You did?
yeah,
Okay.
that's mine.
Okay. So we're going back to as passed by House.
Well, we get it. Okay, right. I mean, 2-7.
727.
Yeah, we just.
We did strike all, but I
Yeah.
think she's talking about 955.
Oh, okay.
Said nine-
Oh, okay.
She moved to
There,
727.
it's
Sorry, I thought you were talking.
No.
7-27.
727 has come back to us. That's the data centers.
Yeah.
Remember, we sent it over because it was really more
Yeah.
land use.
We worked on it, the two of us.
And yeah, and it's coming over. Apparently, there's a fee on there that's causing up to $6 million. They're trying to get numbers on, and it's causing some consternation on the 5th floor, maybe. So, if we wait till tomorrow, we'll probably have better numbers. I was gonna let Maria walk us through it today, and actually.
I still haven't canceled her, so she
Oh,
should be on it.
It might be best if we just went to Maria. Okay,
Yeah, no,
I just mentioned it.
Are you not here?
School committee.
Yes.
so we will go to 727 and we're right on time. She's on for 4 o'clock.
One of you guys.
And we will get that one ready to go. But I think we have 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm hoping most of the bills up there we can knock out. The one bill we need to make a decision on is 248A extension. So if everybody would let me know where you are and what you like in the way witnesses, before we get anywhere, we'll cancel. No, she's here. We're gonna do that one. I think we need a break from education.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood you.
I think it would be a good break if this was like. So we are gonna do 727. And we have appointments on there. You get us a list of appointments and you gave them. Oh, it's new appointment. We've done all hours, okay.
Are we doing at all? Or should we let these guys go or
No, we're done with that.
Oh.
I think we need to hear from education in the morning, until we settle what's happening there. It's not too good.
Right, we had a partial. Tomorrow.
Who represents Rutland?
Can we make sure this?
They don't have any contact information.
Oh, that's right.
I'll do Laura, because she's mine. I need someone near Rutland.
Roughly.
Okay, and I didn't see the third one.
Bruce is the closest.
Okay. Okay, Maria, let's take a break from education and let's go on to 727.
Okay, great. Maria Royal with Legislative Council. And I'm going to share my screen so we can walk through the proposed amendment by Senate Natural Resources and Energy.
Is this a strike all?
It is a strike all.
Looked like everything was underlined.
727.
Uh, Okay, oops, not sure.
Lost it. We got you, we lost the screen. There we go.
Okay. Okay, so it is a strike all amendment. The main provisions are still the same. There's still the first portion of the bill that deals with the large load service equity contract. That's the contract between a data center and the electric company. That has numerous requirements to it that needs to be approved by the PUC. Who must find that it serves the general good of the state, and also specific findings that need to be met. And there's still the Act 250 review, and there are still some requirements related to water consumption and permits that are required. So, and you can let me know what level of specificity you want to go through the bill. I think the reason why it came back to you under Rule 31 is because there is a new charge, what's called an energy transformation payment. So we can go directly to that, or we can walk through some of the other provisions.
Let's walk us through. We haven't been, yeah, this is not the bill that left us, so I think it should walk us through pretty, maybe a 200-foot level.
Sure. Sure, happy to do that. So the title, the purpose, essentially the same, just being a little bit more specific, especially in the purpose that this new regulatory framework is done in a manner that financially benefits existing electric ratepayers as opposed to just protecting them from additional costs caused by data center deployment. Under the definitions, there's a new definition of electric company but that's really just for conciseness, so that when that term is used throughout this new subchapter, in every instance, we know that it means the retail electric company that's providing service to the data center or will provide service if the contract is improved. But what is changed under the definition of facility, what was considered and what Senate Natural Resources and Energy proposes to do is, in addition to counting a facility that's located on a single site or contiguous or adjacent sites, you'll see on line 15 that subdivision B. I'm sorry. Is there a question?
What page you want? 11?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm on page 2.
Page 2. Okay, I'm ahead of you. All right. Thank you.
Okay, and so this should be labeled draft 1.6. Dated May 8th, 11:03 a.m. Yeah, so what the committee did is they wanted to include as one facility any equipment or basically smaller data centers that are located on non-adjacent sites, so multiple sites, that they would be considered a single integrated operation. That is one facility for purposes of meeting the 20 megawatt threshold. If they operate under a central management system, basically. So again, just trying to get at the situation where there might be, multiple sites, but essentially they're functioning as one facility. So that was one kind of big substantive change. In terms of, I'm just going on to the bottom of the page where we get into the large load service equity contracts and what the PUC reviews before finding that it meets the general good of the state. There's some kind of tweaking with some of the provisions, but most of them have remained the same. Subdivision 3. So we'll review because it's been a while, but so I'm on subdivision B1. So these are provisions that need to be included in the contract. So there must be a method for allocating the costs equal or proportional to the cost of providing service to the data center, including providing for equitable contributions to the embedded costs and stability, efficiency, and reliability and resiliency of the electricity network. 2, ensuring that ratepayer classes are insulated from all of the costs associated with data center deployment. And then 3, specify the duration of the contract. There is a proposal now that the contract be for a minimum of 10 years. Subdivision 4 is unchanged. Basically that the data center has to pay a minimum amount or percentage based on their projected electricity usage for the duration of the contract. So whether they're operational or not, they are obligated to make that payment under the contract. And that's related to, I'm just going to skip over 5 for a second. There is still the requirement that the data center provide collateral sufficient to prevent the risk of stranded costs, so that if they actually were no longer operational in the state, that any investments in, for example, grid infrastructure would not be passed on to other ratepayers. They would have some collateral, some financial protection for ratepayers and utilities. So then just going back up line 18 to subdivision 5, a reasonable charge for any demand in excess of what their projected electricity demand is at the time of the contract. Subdivision 7, that was changed around a little bit, but the requirements are basically the same. And this has to do with what the data center can do with respect to demand side management. And it cross-references, you'll see line 5, section 285 of the subchapter. And I mention that because that's one of the sections that was substantially rewritten. So we'll go through that in greater detail when we get there. There's also a requirement, this is new, subdivision 8, line 6, that the contract address load curtailment procedures and priorities during grid emergencies. This gets to the load shedding issues. If there's too much demand on the system and the utility needs to disconnect customers in order to protect the grid, they have what's called a load shedding plan. And there was some conversations about, well, we want to ensure that the data center is disconnected first. But the committee heard from Velco in particular that much of the load shedding procedures are regulated by FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. There are federal requirements that apply to the regional grid operator, which are then passed down to the utility. So there isn't a lot of flexibility here, but they at least wanted to acknowledge that these were things that should be addressed and discussed between the data center and the utility, if there is flexibility in how they would be handled. Subdivision 9 on line 8, this was unchanged, but basically just ensuring that any gross receipts taxes, energy efficiency charges, or other fees are collected appropriately. There was no change to that section. And then a general catch-all, subdivision 10, no change. Any other terms or condition required by the PUC. And then subsection C basically collapsed what was subsection C and subsection D all into one section. So there's both the requirement that before the PUC approves the contract, The commission must first find that it will promote the general good of the state and that its terms satisfy the next few subdivisions. There aren't really substantive changes here. It was just, I think it's just states things a little bit more clearly all in one subsection. Those findings are that the contract will not adversely affect the stability, efficiency, reliability, and resiliency of the electric power system, will result in an economic benefit to the state and its residents, consistent with principles for resource selection that are in the electric company's least cost integrated plan, consistent with the state's electrical energy plan developed by the Department of Public Service, will ensure that the data center is served economically by existing or planned transmission facilities without any undue adverse effect on Vermont utilities or other ratepayers. And finally, are consistent with environmental justice and equity policy as established under Vermont law. What is new is that subdivision 2 on line 9, requiring that the commission's findings pursuant to this subsection C shall be in writing and shall include a stated rationale for each. So that's new. And then also this subsection D is new, and this is just a requirement that the commission conduct periodic reviews of the contracts that are approved. And the purpose is to basically verify that the data center is ongoing, or that the data center is in compliance with all established contract terms, conditions, and regulatory obligations. And these reviews shall be performed at intervals not to exceed 2 years, but the commission may initiate a review at any time upon a finding of good cause or when deemed necessary to protect the public interest. Subsection E is the same. This is basically just saying that the data center will pay the energy efficiency charge. They can't, like some other businesses, participate in energy savings accounts or customer credit programs, nor can they become a self-managed energy efficiency utility. That's the same. That's in the House passed language. So section 285, page 6, line 1. This will go through in a little bit more detail because most of this is new and you haven't seen before. Again, this all has to do with demand side management. So there's a purpose section, subsection A. The purpose of this section is to minimize any adverse impact of data center operations on Vermont's electric system, other ratepayers, and the environment. It aims to minimize peak demand increases, reduce associated costs, and enhance the grid's stability, efficiency, reliability, and resiliency, while minimizing climate pollution emissions and maximizing benefits to Vermonters. So kind of the first step towards meeting these goals is a site suitability analysis, which shall be conducted by the owner or operator of a proposed data center before an Act 250 permit application is submitted. And this analysis shall be developed in consultation with the electric company that's going to provide its service, as well as Efficiency Vermont. That's the cross-reference on lines 12 and 13. And then in terms of what's actually in the analysis, it specifies that it shall provide a preliminary assessment of the facility's capacity to comply with the existing commercial building energy standards, the efficiency standards. Also look at the facility's capacity to maximize deployment of on-site renewable energy generation, battery storage, and demand response assets, and its capacity to implement a waste heat recovery system capable of providing thermal energy to adjacent municipal or residential buildings. So these are all things that should be considered and assessed and looked at, again, with the electric company and with Efficiency Vermont. And then there's also a project design requirement that's in subdivision 2 at the top of page 7. And it specifies that in the design and construction of the data center, the owner or operator shall ensure compliance with state energy efficiency requirements and best practices, and shall attempt to maximize the potential of the site and any structures on the site to host renewable energy. Then we get to subsection C, related to combustion-based backup generation. There's a lot of talk in the data center world about the possibility of data centers relying on diesel backup generators, even when it's not an emergency, and kind of the detrimental environmental impacts of that. So there's the requirement here is not just for diesel-based backup, but any combustion-based backup generation. And I'm just going to jump down to line 10, subdivision 2, about what that means. So combustion-based backup generation includes any electrical generation system that emits air contaminants as defined in Vermont law during combustion. So not just diesel, fossil fuel, it could be like biodiesel. So kind of a broader definition than what's considered in other states so far anyway. But then the requirement back up to line 6 specifies that a data center shall use combustion-based backup generation only during emergency situations involving power failures and interruptions. Otherwise, the data center shall prioritize to the greatest extent practicable the use of battery storage and on-site renewable energy generation. So then we get to subsection.
We have a question for you.
Yes.
Just a quick question on the emergency situation. Isn't like the only emergency situation when the data center actually losing power? So wouldn't that? Anytime you lose power, it's an emergency for a data center, and so those generally.
Well, yeah, yes, that's true. That would be an emergency situation. But I think that what the point is, they're trying to say before you turn on your generator, your combustion generator, first resort to any storage that you have or any on-site renewable energy generation.
So they have UPSs that have battery cabinets that hold the power until the generator kicks on and supplies power. Or is this talking about having a whole mess of Tesla wall packs or something?
Well, it's as much as to the greatest extent practicable, right? So I think there was an understanding that they couldn't just prohibit combustion-based backup generation, but to try to limit it as much as possible. So yeah, they didn't want to be too prescriptive about what an emergency situation is, but just that it shouldn't be the go-to, just immediately fire it up, right? So to the extent that you have storage, to the extent that that's economically feasible to have that level of storage, to have the on-site renewable, that's what should be used as much as possible.
Yeah,
Thanks,
and
Marie.
just to provide a little bit more context for this provision. First of all, there's a later provision about virtual power plants that gets to some of the battery stuff later on in the bill. But there are some data centers that use just essentially, lining their parking lots with, generators fueled by diesel fuel as their bringing their own power to the site. And what we were trying to get at was preventing them from just using diesel generators to power data centers and creating a ton of noise and pollution. So this was limiting the use of them to just emergency situations to avoid that as their sort of power for the data center. And there's more about battery stuff later in the bill.
Guess we can keep going.
Okay, great. So then subsection D, line 13 concerns distributed renewable generation. And it specifies that taking into consideration the site suitability analysis and project design requirements that we just went through under subsection B and any other relevant factors, the data center shall maximize the construction and operation of on-site renewable energy generation to the greatest extent technically feasible. And then also specifying that a renewable energy plant that directly emits air contaminants, as defined under Title 10 from fuel combustion, does not qualify under this subsection, at least for meeting the goal of trying to maximize on-site renewable energy, so not the diesel generators, for example. And then line 19, a data center shall transfer any renewable energy certificates or environmental attributes generated from the operation of plants constructed pursuant to this subsection to the electric company. Okay, so then we get to subsection E, page 8, line 3, and this is. Sorry? Okay, sorry if there was a question, I didn't hear it. So the annual energy transformation payment. So first subdivision 1, line 4, because of the unique and significant demands a data center has on Vermont's electric system, it shall contribute proportionally to state initiatives that reduce fossil fuel consumption and greenhouse gas emissions. Accordingly, a data center shall make an annual payment directly into a fund that's managed by the electric company, and those payments shall be used to finance energy transformation projects as defined in Vermont law. So this could be more efficient kind of electrification projects, could be weatherization. These are all of the projects that are to be funded under the Tier 3 renewable energy standards that apply to utilities. So that's what the citation, the cross-reference is there. And to the extent practicable, such projects shall be deployed in the community hosting the data center and the surrounding communities. So then, in terms of the amount of the payment, line 12, subdivision 2, it shall be equal to 60% of the data center's electricity usage for the prior calendar year. And the rate, it must be multiplied by the alternative compliance payment rate established under the renewable energy standards law. And right now that rate, the original base rate, I believe when the law was enacted, was 6 cents per kilowatt hour. It is adjusted by the PUC for inflation. And I believe it's like a little over 7 cents per kilowatt hour. So payment shall be made in advance at the start of each calendar year based on projected electricity usage. And then any difference between the projected and actual usage shall be reconciled in the following year's payment. So in terms of the amount of the annual payment, if a data center operated, had a continuous load, for example, of 20 megawatts for 1 year, it would be equal to about $7 million, a little over $7 million. I think typically if the capacity of the data center is 20 megawatts, it probably wouldn't be operating at full capacity continuously. Maybe 80% capacity. And if that were the case, then the payment would be about $6 million, a little over $6 million a year. And then subdivision 3 specifies that in the event these funds are used to support projects that are also supported by the electric company under its Tier 3 obligations under the renewable energy standards, or by any other regulated entity, the commission shall prorate the reduction in fossil fuel consumption and greenhouse gas emissions credited to the regulated entity. In other words, you can't double count for some of these projects. Or the electric company can't take credit for the projects that the data center is paying for. And then subsection F, this is a subsection that Senator Hardy referenced concerning virtual power plants or a virtual power plant. And we'll just jump down to the definition first. I think it might be a little bit easier. So I'm on line 13, subdivision F2. As used in this subsection, virtual power plant means a network of distributed energy resources such as batteries, demand response assets, renewable energy generation, and controllable loads that are coordinated through software to function like a traditional power plant. So basically, being able to respond instantaneously to any demands or supply issues in the grid. And so one of the goals is that it will just lead to greater strain or less strain on the electric grid and greater efficiency within the grid if a data center is set up as a virtual power plant and has this level of control. However, so we'll go back up to subdivision 1, which says that the data center shall participate in a virtual power plant managed by the electric company if available and technically feasible. So if that's available, if the electric company offers that or is capable of that, the data center shall participate in that. Otherwise, it shall design and implement a self-managed virtual power plant in coordination with the electric company to optimize energy generation and consumption. And then the next sentence just specifies that the funds used by the data center to build a virtual power plant shall not come from the energy transformation payment that it is required to make under subsection E. Those all go into the host community and the surrounding communities. They also should not rely on any ratepayer funded or state funded program that supports the deployment or operation of assets participating in such a virtual power plant, that it should use its own funds, basically. And so those are the new demand side management provisions. The quarterly and annual reports are pretty much the same. The quarterly reports are what the data center submits to both the commission and the Department of Public Service. And they include things related to the water and energy consumption, including its peak usage per day. And they also include an itemization of the data center's payments towards shared infrastructure constructed to support the data center. And what was added in Senate Natural Resources is, I'm on page 10, lines 3 and 4. The report, just specification that the reports are subject to public inspection and copying under the Public Records Act. And then the annual report that comes to you, the legislature, is provided by the Department of Public Service. Beginning in 2028, provided at least one data center has entered into a contract under this subchapter. And what's included in the report are the department's findings and recommendations related to the energy, environmental, and economic impacts of data center construction and operation in Vermont, as well as any significant developments within the region, such as significant laws or regulations with respect to data centers enacted or adopted in other states, known data center construction in the region, and any known impact on ratepayers from such construction in the state or region. Section 287, just authority for the commission to adopt rules necessary to implement this subchapter. So that's it for kind of the PUC oversight of the tariffs or the contracts. And then section 2, the reference there in Title 10, this concerns Act 250. And it's basically by adding to the definition of development, what's included there on lines 5 through 8. Develop means the construction of improvements on a tract or tracts of land for a data center as defined in what we just went through, subchapter in Title 30, including on land within a Tier 1A area, notwithstanding anything to the contrary in section 6034 of this title. So section 6034 allows the Land Use Review Board to designate certain areas as Tier 1A areas, which are more dense, more urban areas typically, and a municipality can petition or can request that the development occur pursuant to local zoning and ordinances as opposed to the Act 250. So what this is basically saying is that no, that can't happen with respect to data centers, that they have to go through the full state Act 250 review. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the water use permit requirements, section 3. Mike O'Grady covered this.
And I think that's not our area either, so.
Right. So we will then get down to 3A is also related to the water permits. Section 4, this was in the bill as introduced or as passed the House, excuse me. This is just a report by the Commission on the regional renewable energy market and the conditions and projected conditions or availability of renewable electric generation during the years 2027 through 2035. So looking ahead, trying to have a better understanding of what the renewable energy market will be. And then just, in preparing the report on page 16, subsection B, just providing the commission prepares this report, provide an opportunity for written input from interested stakeholders, including electric companies, renewable energy developers, regional transmission organizations, consumer advocates, etc. And then the commission shall consult with various state and regional entities as appropriate. And just a specification that this proceeding is not subject to contested case procedure. So it's not a formal investigation. It's more informal. But it does require a report back to the standing committees of jurisdiction once the report is ready, and the due date is specified at the beginning. So January 15th of next year, you'll receive this report. And then section 5, this is asking for a recommendation, data center decommissioning. It's largely that House passed language. And this is a recommendation prepared by the Commissioner of Public Service in consultation with Secretary of Natural Resources, the Chair of the Land Use Review Board, any other interested stakeholders, to come up with a recommendation in draft form of a regulatory model for data center decommissioning. And these are all of the kind of requirements that are to be considered, in addition to, in subsection B, the overall requirement that the plans or the requirements are developed in a manner that protects and preserves the environment and the public health and welfare. So they should address the approval of a decommissioning plan by the appropriate regulatory entity with a clear delineation of authority if more than one entity is involved in the approval process. The plan should provide for regulatory oversight through site visits and inspections, some kind of bond requirement or financial assurance to ensure that the data center is solely responsible for any of the decommissioning costs. Guidelines for data center, for data sanitization. So any information, any data on any of the IT hardware, software is all removed and is unrecoverable. There's a reference line 13 to specific standards. They're called the storage device sanitization, and they're contained in the storage device sanitization and destruction manual. That's prepared by the National Security Agency and the Central Security Service of the U.S. Department of Defense. So that's how they handle data on IT infrastructure that's considered classified information. So very strict standards. Guidelines for environmental compliance, hazardous material handling, remediation and restoration, a timeline, any other matters deemed appropriate, and you will have this recommendation on or before December 15th of this year. And so this is effective on passage, applies to any data center that's not operational on the effective date of this act, as well as to any existing data center. As you know, there are maybe 4 or so very small data centers currently. This law would apply to them if or to the extent that they seek to expand their capacity and meet the threshold requirements of Section 1. So, use more than 20 megawatts or a minimum of 20 megawatts of power. So that is a walkthrough.
Okay, thank you. It feels longer than when we set it out here. Which is good, because that definitely is not our jurisdiction. James, have you been able to figure out a fiscal note?
Yes, James Duffy, Joint Fiscal Office. There is no new fiscal note to go along with the recommendation that came back to you all from Senate Natural Resources. Nothing in the committee's recommendation changes the previous fiscal note, which you all reviewed. What I will note for the committee is you all heard from Legislative Council an estimate that the energy transformation payments paid by data centers to electric companies annually would amount to about $6 million to $7 million, depending on what assumptions you make. Public Service Department has also testified to that amount. We reached out from JFO to Public Service Department, verified their math, and that sounds reasonable to the Joint Fiscal Office.
Okay.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. But yes, can testify that $6 to $7 million is a reasonable assessment of that annual fee paid by data centers. However, those do not represent state funds, as they would be paid from data centers to electric companies.
Okay. I heard it. At some point, it was said this would benefit ratepayers, not just protect them. So I assume that money going to your electric company would be reflected in their income, which would eventually impact the rates that they charge.
I think that it's a policy interpretation that might vary depending on who you ask, but as I understand it, the funds would be spent on projects to help modernize elements of the electric grid or consumer facing programs. So that's an argument you might hear.
That would just be on a 20 MW plus large data center, right?
Correct. So $6 to $7 million is the estimate for a 20 MW data center, which is the minimum threshold for regulation under H 727. That annual payment would then scale proportionally as the megawatt nameplate capacity, or rather power usage of a data center increases on an annual basis.
We have no testimony that you know of. No, there hasn't been anybody exploring, putting out feelers about building such a data center in Vermont that you know of these discussions.
Legislative council might be able to speak better to this. What we can say for sure is that there are no data centers that would fall under this threshold as of now. I don't know. Maria, do you have anything to add there?
I don't actually, I haven't heard of anything, so.
I'm not gonna build here, but that's it.
Okay. Further discussion or questions? If not, I'm gonna give this a little bit of time to percolate. Questions, and we'll see about voting it out tomorrow. Okay? Okay. Thank you. I think,